ओम नमो श्री ज्योतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित सुख स्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापोहारिणे. On the 160th birthday Tithi of Swami Vivekananda, I present a brief excerpt to bestow my reverence for Swamiji. Swami Vivekananda, known in his pre-monastic life as Narendranath Datta, was born in an affluent family in Kolkata on 12 January 1863. His father, Vishwanath Datta, was a successful attorney with interest in a wide range of subjects, and his mother, Bhuvaneshwari Devi, was endowed with deep devotion, strong character, and other qualities. A precocious boy, Narendra excelled in music, gymnastics, and studies. By the time he graduated from Calcutta University, he had acquired a vast knowledge of different subjects, especially Western philosophy and history. Born with a yogic temperament, he used to practice meditation even from his boyhood and was associated with Brahmo movement for some time. At the threshold of youth, Narendra had to pass through a period of spiritual crisis when he was assailed by doubts about the existence of God. It was at that time he first heard about Sri Ramakrishna from one of his English professors at college. One day in November 1881, Narendra went to meet Sri Ramakrishna, who was staying at the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. He straightaway asked the master a question which he had put to several others but had received no satisfactory answer. "Sir, have you seen God?" Without a moment's hesitation, Sri Ramakrishna replied, "Yes, I have. I see him as clearly as I see you, only in a much intenser sense." Apart from removing doubts from the mind of Narendra, Sri Ramakrishna won him over through his pure unselfish love. Thus began a guru-disciple relationship which is quite unique in the history of spiritual masters. Narendra now became a frequent visitor to Dakshineshwar and under the guidance of the master made rapid strides on the spiritual path. At Dakshineshwar, Narendra also met several young men who were devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, and they all became close friends. Swamiji was a follower of Sri Ramakrishna, and he always tried to carry out the will of his master. He now felt that Sri Ramakrishna wanted him to go to America to attend a parliament of religions. It was a strange and distant land, and it would not be easy to go there. But he also felt that somehow he would be able to help his own country better from the West. To fulfill the will of God, then he decided to make the journey to America. This is the resolve he made while sitting on the rock at Cape Comorin. Swamiji next went to Madras, where many intelligent young men became his enthusiastic followers. He gave several talks before different groups and met many important and educated people. He told them about his idea of going to America. His young disciples became very enthusiastic about this, and they began to raise money for the ticket. At this time, the Maharaja of Khetri invited Swamiji to visit his capital again. It was the Maharaja who gave the Swami a first-class ticket on a ship going to Canada and many things he needed for the trip. The Maharaja also suggested that he take the name Vivekananda. Swamiji accepted this name, and for the rest of his life he was known as Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda sailed from Bombay on May 31, 1893. The ship stopped at Ceylon, Singapore, Hong Kong, and other ports in China and Japan. Swamiji enjoyed the trip very much. The ship then sailed to Vancouver, Canada. Swamiji left Vancouver by train for Chicago. On the train, a rich, cultured lady named Miss Sanborn was impressed by his noble personality and had her conversation with him. She said to Swamiji, "If you ever come to my home near Boston, I shall be happy to have you as my guest," and introduced you to persons of learning and culture. Swamiji reached Chicago in the middle of July. It was a strange new world. He visited the Chicago World's Fair, where the Parliament of Religions was to be held. He was surprised to see all the exhibits and scientific inventions. He marveled at the machinery, the industrial products, and the arts. After a few days, Swamiji went to the Information Bureau to find out about the Parliament of Religions. He was dismayed to learn that the Parliament would not open until September. Moreover, they told him that he could not be accepted as a delegate at the Parliament because he had no papers to show that he represented any group or sect. They also told him that the time for admission was already past. This news was a great blow. Or still, he was fast running out of money. He had to wait almost 2 months for the Parliament, but his money would soon be spent and then he would have to starve. Swamiji left Chicago and went to Miss Sanborn's place near Boston. As he was told, he could live there more cheaply than in Chicago. He also remembered Miss Sanborn's cordial invitation to visit her home. While in her home, he met Professor J.H. Wright of Harvard University. He had a long discussion with the professor and talked about many different subjects with him. Professor Wright recognized Swamiji's great scholarship and said that he should represent Hinduism at the Parliament of Religions. Swamiji told him that he had no official letter from any organization. The professor replied, "To ask you, Swami, for credentials is like asking the sun to state its right to shine." Professor Wright arranged everything for Swamiji. He wrote to the chairman of the committee of the Parliament of Religions introducing Swamiji. In this letter, he said, "Here is a man who is more learned than all our learned professors put together." He also presented Swamiji with a ticket to Chicago. Swamiji was very happy to see how God's purpose was being fulfilled. When Swamiji reached Chicago, he found that he had lost the address of the committee. He did not know where to go. He was tired and finding no other place. He spent the night in a large empty box. In the morning, he began to walk along a street where rich people lived in large houses. Like a sannyasi, he began to beg for food from door to door. But he was treated rudely, and even the servants insulted him, for begging is condemned in the West. He did not know what to do. At last, he decided just to wait for the will of God. If God had brought him to the West for some purpose, then he would look after him. So he sat down by the side of the street, determined to wait until something happened. Just then the door of a nearby house opened and a lady came out. She went up to Swamiji and asked him, "Sir, are you a delegate to the Parliament of Religions?" Swamiji told her all about himself. The lady invited him into her home and instructed the servants to look after him. She saw that he had breakfast and then took him to the office of the Parliament. Swamiji gave his letter of introduction and was gladly accepted as a delegate. The lady who helped him was Mrs. George W. Hill. She, her husband, and their children became close friends of Swamiji. The Parliament of Religions opened on Monday, September 11, 1893. It was held in a large building called the Hall of Columbus. Swami Vivekananda sat on the platform at the front with the other delegates. Cardinal Gibbons of the Roman Catholic Church sat in the center. On both sides were delegates representing nearly all countries and religions. There were a few others from India. Majumdar and Nagarkar represented the Brahma Samaj, Dharmapala represented the Buddhists of Ceylon, and Chakravarti and Mrs. Basant represented Theosophy. There was a large audience of 4,000 people. It was a grand occasion and Swami Vivekananda felt nervous at the sight of so many people. The chairman several times requested him to speak, but he would not agree. Late in the afternoon, the chairman announced his name without asking him. Swamiji now had no choice, so he stood up and faced the audience. He began by saying, "Sisters and brothers of America." He could not say more. The audience was tremendously moved by the way he addressed them and they began to clap their hands and cheer. Hundreds of people rose to their feet shouting and cheering. The cheering continued for several minutes. When silence was restored, Swamiji continued his speech. It was a short speech, but in it he presented Hinduism as a religion which taught that all religions are true and that all should be accepted. Other speakers had spoken only of their particular religion. Swamiji spoke of the truth in all religions. The audience liked the speech very much. In fact, they liked Swamiji better than any of the other speakers. Swamiji became famous overnight, and the newspapers were full of praise of him. Swami Vivekananda gave several speeches at the parliament, the most famous being his paper on Hinduism. Swamiji was always the favorite, and his speeches were always kept till the end so that the people would stay. Sometimes large numbers of people became tired and started to leave. Then the chairman would say that Swami Vivekananda would give a short speech before the meeting closed. All the people then went happily to hear Swamiji. Large pictures of Swamiji were printed and displayed in the streets of Chicago. Everyone spoke about him. The newspapers of India were also filled with the news of his triumph at Chicago, and the Indian people were very proud of his great success. His brother monks at Baranagar were especially happy when they learned that their Naren was the famous Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda did not forget the poor people of India. He kept thinking about them and how they could be helped. Soon after his return to Kolkata, Swami Vivekananda accomplished another important task of his mission on earth. He founded on 1st May 1897 a unique type of organization known as Ramakrishna Mission, in which monks and lay people would jointly undertake propagation of practical Vedanta and various forms of social service such as running hospitals, schools, colleges, hostels, rural development centers, etc., and conducting massive relief and rehabilitation work for victims of earthquakes, cyclones, and other calamities in different parts of India and other countries. In early 1898, Swami Vivekananda acquired a big plot of land on the western bank of the Ganga at a place called Belur to have a permanent abode for the monastery and monastic order originally started at Baranagar and got it registered as Ramakrishna Mutt after a couple of years. Here Swamiji established a new universal pattern of monastic life which adapts ancient monastic ideals to the conditions of modern life, which gives equal importance to personal illumination and social service, and which is open to all men without any distinction of religion, race, or caste. In June 1899, he went to the West on a second visit. This time, he spent most of his time in the west coast of USA. After delivering many lectures there, he returned to Belur Mutt in December 1900. The rest of his life was spent in India, inspiring and guiding people, both monastic and lay. Incessant work, especially giving lectures and inspiring people, told upon Swamiji's health. His health deteriorated and the end came quietly on the night of 4th July 1902. Before his Mahasamadhi, he had written to a Western follower, "It may be that I shall find it good to get outside my body, to cast it off like a worn out garment, but I shall not cease to work. I shall inspire men everywhere until the whole world shall know that it is one with God." Jai Ma, Jai Thakur, Jai Swamiji.